Two members of the Houston Texans potentially on their way out. DeMeco Ryans, Nick Caserio. Who's in charge? I think the duties are actually split. I'll explain that. Plus, we'll get ready to get into draft mode. Let's go.
Yeah.
Do it live.
Yeah. It's the Locker Room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey. Locker Room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give, we got takeaways.
Look at that game face right there with Nick Caserio. It's been a week of free agency. Nick Caserio, that's the look he gives me when I'm about to ask him a question. We're going to revisit a question I asked Nick Caserio, and we're going to put it side by side with DeMeco Ryans. The question may be why. The answer is because I think it gives us clues, hints, maybe even the obvious, something that we've already known as to who exactly is in charge and who exactly is making the calls around here in regards to getting the Houston Texans off this treadmill of the divisional round and going somewhere where they've never been before. It is a Locker Room, number one source for Texans digital content. I am Landry Locker. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Join SNL tomorrow live at Spanky's Friday Free Agent Frenzy. It's going to be a fun time. Homemade dough, homemade sauce. I've already looked at a new pizza that I think I'm gonna try. I didn't even know this existed, so I'm pulling up the Spanky's menu. Do you look at the menu before you go places? But I got the menu here. I'm one of those people who looks it up. I already know this menu though, but I've never really dove into this. The happy hour obviously goes well, but this pizza right here. And I was looking at it, and it's the Amore cheese pizza right there. It says for cheese lovers only. It says huge melted layer of extra cheese with any two of your favorite toppings. So this is extra cheese and two toppings. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'm going to get that personal. I'm going to get the thin crust. And then I'm probably just going to go absolutely ham into the weekend. And the tater kegs are always popular. Everybody's a big fan of them tater kegs. But I'm just going to give me some wings. I'm going to probably give me 8 wings right there. And that's how it will go down. We'll have prizes, live broadcast at 3. Hope to see you out there. There's some wacky stuff going on in the AFC South that I also want to address. The division is getting weird. Has it gotten better? I think in some areas, but I think it's also gotten extremely weird when it comes to this. Tate Rodriguez says, I'll make it one day. The way you guys talk up the restaurant makes me hungry. It's some of the best bar food in the game. And, you know, your first name is Tater, so you got to try the tater kegs. It's actually Tate Rodriguez, but we can take out the R in the Rodriguez and Tater. So you definitely got to try those tater kegs. So here is the thing that I want to get to the bottom of when it comes to the Texans. With all these decisions, and we often criticize decisions, and it feels like Nick Caserio gets the brunt of the blame whenever there's anger, because I think we look at the defense, we look at DeMeco as a defensive coach, maybe not so much on offense, which may make sense. DeMeco, no. And I think Caserio gets the brunt of the frustration. My question is that fair? I'm very quick to criticize. I try to be as fair as possible with my criticisms. And I think we've been all over this one from the very beginning. And I think this is the way that we need to start looking at this thing when it comes to getting off that mediocre treadmill. Look, I know Nick Caserio is gassing up the 3-year stretch, and it's the best stretch in the history of a franchise that really doesn't have like an overwhelming ton of success. But you can't stay here for too much longer. Like, you got to try to crank it up a notch. Like, even King Bill O'Brien, they had a year where they at least like acknowledge, all right, we got to go from good to great. Like the Buffalo Bills have kind of been on this treadmill for a while, and eventually, after a long time, and they have a longer sustained area of success than the Texans. Like eventually, you got to move on from that gap. Now, does that mean you change the coach? Does that mean you change the GM? I don't know. You change something, and I think DeMeco Ryans has the longest shelf life in this organization. I think if they do get to the point where they want to make some sort of change, I think DeMeco Ryans has the longest shelf life. Now, sometimes it's the quarterback. Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills, Patrick Mahomes with the Kansas City Chiefs, Lamar Jackson. We've seen multiple coaches go there. They have longest shelf lives. So CJ Stroud does not have a longer shelf life than DeMeco Ryans or Nick Caserio. That's not the case, and that should not be the case. But if this thing goes, I don't think that there's a time where Nick Caserio and DeMeco Ryans leave at the same time. And I also think they're aligned. I think DeMeco Ryans has become a Patriot way type of guy. I think he's kind of a blowhard when he goes up to the podium. I think he's a little bit paranoid. And I think some of the New England stuff has kind of rubbed off on DeMeco Ryans a little bit. And I do think he trusts Caserio. And I think when they say that when they say that they are aligned, I believe it. And I think you can kind of see it when they speak. But I do think that the duties have been divided. And we've said this from the very jump. I think you can cut this thing in half on each side of the rock. And I think it's DeMeco on defense, and I think it's Caserio on offense. I think this is Nick Caserio's offensive operation. Now, DeMeco Ryans is the head coach. What he says goes. But I think this is Nick Caserio. And I thought this from the jump as soon as they said bye-bye to Bobby, and we stopped saying the two words, damn it, Bobby.
Damn it, Bobby.
This went from
damn it, Bobby
to a Nick offensive operation in the form of Nick Caserio bringing in his guy, Nick Caley. And you saw how Nick Caserio was at the combine and how defensive he was about the offense. He defended the offensive line play. He told that young man, you're not watching the same film I am. He defended the Dalton Schultz performance, said, I don't know if you are watching, but he broke a record. And he's defended this offense for a long, long time. And when DeMeco Ryans originally brought in Bobby Slowick was his guy. And Bobby Slowick ran an offense that DeMeco Ryans thinks very fondly of. It was the offense that they ran in Houston. It was the offense that they ran in San Francisco when he was in San Francisco. So the two biggest examples of success that DeMeco Ryans, a defensive guy, has had in the National Football League have been running the Shanahan / Kubiak offense. And for whatever reason, after year two, they decided to bring in a guy who originally we thought, well, maybe there's going to be some sort of like element of this Shanahan offense with the Rams. But we found out quickly through the voice of actual players in the locker room. They told me and Cody Stoots, SNL, Monday through Friday, 4:00 right here. They told us, well, this is the same offense. Yeah, this is that system. This is the system that Bill O'Brien had. You heard multiple guys say it. You heard John Mechie say it. Who played for O'Brien? You heard Titus Howard say it. You heard Jake Andrews say it. Trent Brown has said it. That's four guys right there that have said that this was the New England offense. So that was kind of the context clues, and that was what we got. And I'm not sitting here saying this to like say that there's some sort of we've covered this from start to finish. But I do think when we're looking at how this goes, and CJ Stroud's going to have to play better. I'm just talking about who's in charge and who's overseeing it. It's blatantly obvious that DeMeco is in charge of the defense and Caserio is in charge of the offense. It's blatantly obvious. Now, let's lay out some more clues when it comes to this. Nick Caserio was in New England. He was in this system for nearly 2 decades. He was in this system with multiple offensive coordinators. He was such a big part of this system that he was in the offensive meetings, and he even wore a headset on game days. He also originally brought this to Houston with him before DeMeco Ryans decided to go in the direction of the Kubiak-Shanahan system. He's also brought in guys to oversee this offense that have New England ties and a history with this offense. It would be crazy to think that DeMeco Ryans, whether you think Bobby Slowick should have been fired or not, to think that DeMeco Ryans just decided, I got to fire my guy. I got to move on from this offensive system that has been a part of my life for 12, 13, however many years when you combine the San Francisco and Houston time. I got to move on from this. You know what? I think this New England Patriot offense, which has no examples of really working without Tom Brady, this is really what I think that we need to take the next step. That's what we need, Nick. I really think that we need to bring in this New England offense. That's exactly what the doctor ordered. Come on. Come on. I mean, it's safe. You got to use some common sense. And this is nothing new, but I think this is the way that we need to evaluate this. Much like whenever an overseer on defense, like if the defense struggles, we're blaming DeMeco. The offense, it's Nick Caley, but it goes deeper and it goes to Nick Caserio. And those aren't the only clues here. I mean, you think about it. You remember when Bill O'Brien used to when the Texans got the brakes tapped off them by the Denver Broncos and Drew Lock, and I think they were down 28-0 at one point, and then they just the offense, there was some mop up duty, and they ended up kind of saving face and making it not look as bad as it was. Remember how defensive Bill O'Brien was, where he was like, it wasn't all horseshit on offense. I don't know what you guys were. It wasn't all horseshit on offense. He was defending his New England system, which I think is why Nick Caserio was so snappy at the combine when it comes to the offense that he oversees. This is his baby. This is his baby. And I can't really blame him, but this is his baby. So the credit goes to DeMeco when we're talking about the defense. The shelf life is longer, but when we're talking about the offense, it's Nick Caserio. And let's just listen to some more clues. I asked DeMeco Ryans, and just watch DeMeco Ryans kind of glow when he talks about this offense. This was before they were going to face Seattle. This was DeMeco Ryans. They were going to face the Seattle Seahawks. Kubiak's offspring, calling the plays. I asked DeMeco, what do you like about this system, man? Listen to how he talks about the system that he let go of, and just how insightful and passionate DeMeco Ryans is when he talks about this system.
Seattle's been they're by far the number one team in the league, play action pass. What do you think makes them so good at that, and what goes into defending that?
And for Seattle, they're good at the play action pass game because, Kubiak's done a good job wherever he's been as a play caller. He's done a really good job of establishing the outside zone scheme, right? And with the outside zone scheme comes the keepers off of the outside zone action. So he's done a really good job of marrying both run game and passing game, meaning they both look very similar. So the play action pass game works because of the offensive line and how they come off the football, right? How they make the run look exactly like the pass. It puts the second level defenders in a bind where, are you stepping up to defend the run, or can you key it and diagnose it quick enough to understand that it's pass and now I need to drop in coverage? So they've done a really good job, starting with Kenneth Walker as in the run game. He's a really, really good running back in this league, and he's done a really nice job. And when you have him running the ball the way he runs it, right, guys are going to commit. And once you get guys to step up 2 or 3 steps off, and now Darnold's done a good job of getting on the edges, making good decisions down the field, and he's had a lot of guys open in those play action passing concepts. That's why they've been successful as well. A lot of guys are wide open.
He loves the system, and that's not the only example of it. That's just the only one that I dug up. That's when you ask DeMeco Ryans what system he likes best, it's that one. But he bailed on it. I think it was a compromise to Nick Caserio. I think early on, Nick Caserio kind of stepped back. Nick Caserio had his tail between his legs during the hiring process of DeMeco Ryans. He had just pissed away the number 1 overall pick. Say what you want, whether you say it's a blessing or not. Pissing away the number 1 overall pick in the final week of the season is stupid. And it's just as stupid if you think C.J. Stroud was better than Bryce Young. Because you leave open the opportunity to not get the best quarterback. It's stupid. They should have made Brandon Cooks not active. But as a result, Nick Caserio had his tail between his legs. DeMeco came in. DeMeco brought his offense. And I think Caserio, as soon as he had the opportunity, as soon as they had a little bit of success, he pounced. And he brought in the New England offense that means so much to him. And that's where they're at. And if you just heard DeMeco talk about that system, listen, this is a huge analysis of the Patriot system. But I asked Nick Caserio, and this was after I'd asked Nick Caley about this offense. He said it's not a plug-and-play New England offense. Okay, whatever. But I asked Nick Caserio about this offense and why this offense is here, and just listen to him break it down. Look how he's looking at me. He knows something's coming. This is a good banner right here. This is Nick Caserio defending his favorite thing about football. Nick. The New England offense. Here you go.
Yeah, offensive system. I know like some of the foundational pieces are the New England system, but we always talk about, the New England system is back. I'll say I talk about it. I won't lump people in.
Are you in the New England system?
Well, how is this? Like telling me as much as you can tell me, because there have been players that played for both O'Brien and him, 3 guys that have said it, and Todd Bowles said it was familiar. Telling me as much as you can without giving away too much. Tell me how this is different than the Brady New England system.
Yeah. Again, I think anytime everything kind of generally labeled this system, that system, I would say football evolves over time. So again, the offense as it was constructed in 01 is different than the offense in 07, different than the offense in 2010. So it kind of took on multiple different shapes and sizes. Offensive football, forget about the New England system or any system. It usually goes back to what are some of the foundational things, core principles, and then what's your personnel? Who do you have on your team? And what are some of the things that you're going to ask those players to do? How you call plays, route concepts. Honestly, everybody has the same concepts. Probably the biggest, I would say, difference, or maybe some of the things that are specific systematically, is just from a protection variation standpoint. So that's probably where you've seen some. I would say it can be. It honestly, again, not biased, but sometimes it simplifies for everybody involved. And I think defenses have done a good job of evolving. So I'm
not biased about the system that you were in for 20 years, that you were in meetings in, that you brought here. Come on.
I think what you're trying to do is just equip the players and the quarterback for answers if there's an issue. And there's going to be times where the defense presents situations where maybe they have an extra player that you can't block or you can't account for. So it's really more, I would say, in a protection system front than it is anything else. Route concepts, run games, some of those other things.
This guy.
I mean, honestly, it's probably universal. I mean, you can look around the league. Maybe some teams emphasize.
You're telling me this guy ain't in charge of the offense? Come on. And we've been all over this from the jump, but I'm just saying, like let's be serious.
Has a few more things relative to others. But again, I don't want to say it's actually a very player-friendly system. It's quarterback-friendly.
Yes.
And you have to learn the terminology and what you call things, and sometimes you got to be able to translate a little bit. But even that system, it evolved over time, and it's not certainly cut and paste. It's not you take this playbook and then you drop it in there's always going to be core elements. And I think we're all a product of whatever our foundation, what do we learn?
Yeah.
But even as you grow as a coach, in personnel, you're going to make some changes and adjustments as you go. And you're going to kind of, I don't want to say modernize it or equip it to this game and to kind of mirror with some of the defense. And when you look at the way defenses are playing now relative to, let's call it the 2010s, through 15, like it's definitely changed. So front structure, front modification, I would say defenses have done a really good job of evolving, and they try to put a lot of stress. And when you're coaching defensive football and you're playing defense, you're really trying to, what can we do to stretch protections? So conversely, on the offensive side, all right, what are some of the things that we can do to counteract and balance that? So again, I think sometimes you just have to be careful of just making too much of a parallel. It's system to system. It's definitely evolved over time. And unless you've been really in the system, which I've been in a lot of systems over the course of 25 years, I'm not saying like
you've been a part of it, and that's why I asked, because we've seen it not work with Tom Brady, and that's one of the talking points that I use. And then we saw it for a number of years. It didn't feel like it was evolving as much. But you're one of the guys who was there for 20 years. You coached in it. You were in the building. Sometimes you're wearing the headset. So I just figured you would have a better grasp of it.
It definitely evolved, Landry. And the same thing defensively. When you're looking going back to some of the defensive front structures from how it was kind of in the beginning to where it was in the end.
You're saying it's evolving here, right? But that's not always, right?
Correct. I'm saying offensively and defensively, just in those systems, my experience over 20 years, they were modified and tweaked and evolved. And then when you look at where we are with the Houston Texans, we've had a couple different, call it offensive systems, but I'd say a lot of concepts that we're using currently, we've carried over from the past 2 to 3 years. They're player friendly. There's some carryover, and that's where, as a coach, you're just trying to figure out what makes the most sense and trying to make it work. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And DeMeco's done the same thing defensively. The things that he was doing in San Francisco, we're doing things here that he wasn't doing in San Francisco, and that's kind of work.
Hold on. He just basically confirmed what I've been telling y'all from the jump. He just confirmed it. Like this guy sounds like a guy who's in charge of this offense, who's selling it. DeMeco's just in charge of the defense. Caserio's in charge of the offense. Listen to what he just said. He just told you.
You're just trying to figure out what makes the most sense and trying to make it work. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that. And DeMeco's done the same thing defensively. The things that he was doing in San Francisco, we're doing things here that he wasn't doing in San Francisco. And that's kind of the ebb and flow, of this league.
And this is the difference. And this is the difference in it. And we're just doing this. This is something that we've been saying from the jump about Caserio. But DeMeco has a body of work, and this system, this 49ers defensive system, has a body of work of working with multiple guys in multiple destinations. Like Robert Saleh has had success with this defense. Even the Jets had good defenses at times. He went back to San Francisco, pretty good. Saying that this offense evolved in 2003 and 2005, who was the quarterback? I mean, yeah, it was different. Who was the quarterback? But outside of that, you haven't seen much evolution. And I'm not sitting here saying, that this is a lost cause. All I'm saying is, let's just make this very obvious. And it's been obvious from the jump. As we're sitting here and we're complaining about the gap between the offense and the defense, I think there's a couple of factors that factor in. Number one, you have a defensive-minded coach. Maybe he's not very balanced, and they skew one direction when it comes to the decisions, the coaching, all that. So that's one factor. But let's just be obvious. Let's just be serious. Like sometimes whenever there's something that you don't want to do, you just let someone else handle it. I mean, if there's something that you're not good at, you let someone else handle it. I don't know like what analogy I can come up with, but there's a lot of examples of like, okay, you're good at this, then you handle that and I'll handle this. I'll handle my strength, you handle your strength whenever you're working as a team. I want nothing to do with that. You handle that. You handle all that. You handle the accounting. I'll do this. I'll go do this. I'll handle the sales. You handle the accounting. Like if you're starting a small business, something like that. DeMeco Ryans' offense isn't his thing. He brought in Bobby Slowick because we know how much he loved that system. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, Nick, you handle that. So Nick's handling it. For better or worse. You know, they can say it's a team effort, but if you truly believe that DeMeco Ryans just woke up after firing Bobby Slowick and said, you know what, I really want to bring in the New England system, I don't know what to tell you. There's no ties to that. You heard Nick Caserio talking about this and talking about you got to change terminology and you got to do all this stuff. Don't they have a quarterback who himself said, and it went viral, it looked good early, himself said, I'm not a test taker? That was like one of the CJ Stroud viral quotes. I'm not a test taker. I mean, the way that he describes that sounds like it's kind of like a test. So all I'm saying is that these duties are split up. DeMeco is the face of the defense. He's obviously the one who calls the shots because it feels like the investment's leading defense more. And Caserio's in charge of the offense. And both of them are in familiar territory. So that's where they're at. CRE Texans says, am I saying DeMeco needs to grab the offense by the balls from Nick? I don't think DeMeco can do that. I think DeMeco knows defense. That's not an insult. There's been a lot of coaches who know offense. Andy Reid knows offense. It wasn't until he found Spags where he started winning consistently at the level that he struggled to win at before. And Spags basically handles the defense now for him. There's been some really, really good offensive coaches who weren't able to figure out defense. DeMeco needs to find the right guy to trust when it comes to the offense. And this is not like going to be his last crack at it. If it doesn't work out, maybe Nick Caserio steps back and DeMeco goes back to the other system. I don't know. But just make no mistake about it. Like this offense is a Caserio operation. You heard what he just said, and you've seen where DeMeco is. DeMeco didn't wake up and say, I need to figure this out. So as we're sitting here and we're talking about the offense and the defense and all that, just make no mistake about it. Like this is Nick Caserio's offensive operation. DeMeco Ryans is handling his side of the ball, and that's where they're at. But no, I don't think DeMeco Ryans needs to just take it by the nuts. That's just what it is. And I'm just trying to give a clear picture. Does that mean fire Caserio if the offense doesn't work? No, I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying that either. But we just need to acknowledge and know what that is. Because a lot of times these guys, when you say it's a team effort, you're just trying to basically absolve blame from each other. You're trying to share the blame. It's fun to share the blame. I'm an expert on sharing the blame. It's great. You ever get in trouble at school and all of a sudden, like you feel like you're on an island and you're all to blame. And then all of a sudden, I'm not snitching, but all of a sudden Johnny gets some of the blame and you're sitting waiting for the principal with someone else. It's good to have company. It sucks when you're sitting there waiting for the principal by yourself and you have to walk in that office alone. That sucks. Some of you can't relate to that. Some of y'all probably never had to go to the principal's office, get blamed. It's nice. It's nice to have company. So yeah, there you go. That's really what that is. It's kind of obvious. We knew that, but Nick Caserio is calling this offense. DeMeco is calling this defense. This is Nick Caserio's offense, period. Nick Caley knew Nick Caserio. That's why he's here. DeMeco Ryans didn't wake up and say, I really want this system here. So let's just make that very clear as we're talking about the offense and the defense. on the chats, Malik is in the building.
Swarm.
He has a script for the draft. He has a script. He says they need to go DT, LB, DE with the first 3 picks. He says, I believe if Messidor is there at 28, they will get him despite the age. J-Rod is a player the Texans should get also. So you're saying draft Messidor, who played for Rod Wright at Miami when defensive line coach Rod Wright with the Texans was in Miami. Get him. He's going to be 25 years old when the draft happens. He's older than, I think, 25% of the Texans roster. Get him at 28. And then you're saying Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. I don't know if they like Rodriguez or not. But yeah, I would say they probably would not do that, but you just want to go all in on the defense. I can understand there. I think Lee Hunter might be there at 28. And then McDonald. I think between McDonald and Hunter, they both might be there. I don't know if McDonald gets up the field enough for them to take him that early. All right. I want to talk about we talk about businesses and all that. If you look at your backyard and you say, you know what, I could really I would really love to get this done. Ace Outdoor Solutions is a new sponsor, and Zach is the owner, and Zach is an absolute genius. You go to Ace Outdoor Solutions, they can do anything for you. They can do anything for you outside of your home. They specialize in custom patio building. They can do custom pool installations, hot tubs, outdoor kitchens, anything. If you feel like your outdoor space is not being maximized, let him show you the vision. And it's going to be custom. It's going to be what you want. It's not one of these big companies that just has basically a magazine and you pick. He's going to listen to you and he's going to get it done. Fencing, gates, anything, literally anything in your backyard, hot tubs. Eventually, I'm going to get a hot tub, and I'm going to let Zach handle that for me. Go to Ace Outdoor Solutions. They'll get the job done. It's a local business. And Zach, there's really no distance he will not go to get it done. Check out Ace Outdoor Solutions. You look back in your backyard, man, I could really use a fire pit. Man, I really want to set this up to where I can watch DeMeco Ryans call the defense and Nick Caserio oversee the offense. He's got you covered there. Give him a call at 346-237-0573. He'll be the guy you speak to. Check out some of the work at Ace Outdoor Solutions. He's got you covered. And there is so much that he can do. So check out Ace Outdoor Solutions with Zach. Tell him that SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots sent you. So there's that. The guys that have been most impacted by the moves that have happened so far, including 2 guys who could perhaps be on their way out. We'll talk about that in a sec. First, let's take our eyes off our own paper for a second. Speaking of school, let's cheat and look at someone else's paper, which I may or may not have done a lot all the way through college. May or may not have. But I'm looking at the division, and there's 2 wacky things going on that I just kind of want to like acknowledge. And the Tennessee Titans are doing their thing. They're spending money. Now, is it funny money? Is it smart money? We don't know. Robert Saleh is getting his guys to run his defense. They got the quarterback on their rookie deal. Brian Dable's bringing in his guys to run the offense. And they got draft equity to where it feels like Jeremiah Love could end up there. They got a lot going on in Tennessee. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see if Cam Ward looks better with Dable. We'll see if Saleh, who went through what he went through in New York, we'll see if that's the right fit for him. Nothing really wacky about it. I actually think that I'm a big Robert Saleh guy, and I like what they're doing in Tennessee. Jacksonville, though, is interesting because the Jags were good last year. They were really good. They very easily could have made a run, but eventually they hit a wall, and they ended up not getting the job done. And now they've lost Devin Lloyd, and they've lost Travis Etienne. So maybe they're going to go with Tootin as RB1. I don't know how they replace Devin Lloyd. They'll probably have to figure something out there. But their GM, James Gladstone, was asked about, why they aren't being active in free agency. And this quote had a lot of people in Jacksonville pissed off and kind of had the internet going nuts. And it is the Whacky number one as we take our eyes off our own paper and hear what they're saying in Jacksonville. Here is the they say he's the GM. Tony Baselli's the shot caller. This guy has the GM title. Here's what he said.
We're at a stage now where a higher volume of draft capital is what we're hunting up, and those compensatory picks. When you think about high-priced free agents of ours ended up signing elsewhere, well-deserved contracts. I mean, a lot of guys that have already announced the signing, I mean, they did their part to put themselves in really sound positions to earn that, and excited for all those guys. In return, by not signing any outside free agents, we recoup 2027 draft capital. And I think on its surface, you would think, oh, okay, you're going to make picks in 2027. Whereas in reality, those draft picks and having more of them actually allows you the luxury of remaining in the hunt at different intervals throughout the entire calendar year for acquiring players. You think about training camp a year ago and using a day 3 pick to acquire a wide receiver in Tim Patrick. You think about ahead of the trade deadline and being able to use 2 picks on day 3 to acquire a wide receiver in Jacoby Myers. Without that draft capital at your disposal, you may not be as willing or able to relinquish some of those future picks. So by building that up, now it allows us the luxury of remaining sort of with the flexibility to do those sorts of things as we move into the next stages of the offseason and into the regular season.
All right. So I find it very hard to believe that comp picks is like some sort of plan. That's a little bit wacky, but this is a guy that's kind of said some goofy stuff. Quite frankly, I don't know how in charge he is. Like, we spent the beginning of this talking about Nick Caserio is clearly in charge of the offense. DeMeco Ryans is clearly in charge of the defense. He has the shelf life. I just don't really know how much of a say this guy really has in what does and doesn't go down. So that's just kind of where I sit on that when it comes to Gladstone. He's a weird guy. And they're going to have to figure out how to place those players. I also don't think the Travis Hunter selection and trading all the picks, I don't think that's going to look too good over time. I think that was a little bit gimmicky in an attempt to make a splash. I didn't really understand what they were doing there. I actually thought he was a really, really good receiver and they could use him, but now they're saying that he's going to play corner. So there's that. That's what they decided to do. They're still a good football team, but that guy says some weird shit and some really wacky stuff. So that's where he is and what he's at. I will say this though. I think the Brian Thomas Jr. stock is extremely low right now. I was very high on him last year. The stock is a little bit too low for my liking right now. There's been talks about them trading him. If I were a team that needed a receiver, I would kick the tires on the final 2 years of that rookie deal. I still think he can be a useful player for them, along with Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington. I think Parker Washington is one of the most underrated players in football. But I think BTJ right now, I think he's getting a little bit too slept on for where things are with that. So that's wacky thing number one as we take our eyes off our own paper. Join us at Spanky's tomorrow. Going to be fun. I've already placed my order. This new pizza, I didn't even know this was a possibility. The extra cheese and the 2 toppings. Don't threaten me with a good time. But wacky thing number 2 is the Daniel Jones situation, aka the continuation of QB hell in Indianapolis. Look, Andrew Luck abruptly retires at the age of 29. Damn, that's unfortunate. That sucks. Sometimes it's easier said than done to find a quarterback. Sometimes the opportunity is not there. The example I'll use right now is what is Minnesota supposed to do right now? They bring in Kyler Murray. A lot of people are cooking him. I actually think it's probably the best option of all the available things that are going on. It's not a deep quarterback draft. the free agent class kind of is what it is. You're going to go with Kyler Murray. You're going to go with Malik Willis. Like it's not the most fun situation to be in. And it's easier said than done to find a quarterback. So I sympathize with Indianapolis in regards to that. I also think that they did a really good job of buying low on Daniel Jones this previous year. Historic start offensively, easy schedule. I know is always the pushback when Texans fans start talking about, but I thought they did a really good job with Daniel Jones. Then he started playing with a broken fibula. Then he tore his Achilles. And I was one person who kind of thought, okay, Indianapolis is going to get Daniel Jones for cheap, and they're going to bring him back, and they're going to use a stopgap in the meantime and figure out what goes on. Or maybe because Achilles injuries seem like they're leaning towards an evolution, much like torn ACL surgeries have done in my lifetime, to where maybe Daniel Jones is going to be able to play and he's going to be ready to go, but he's going to be cheap. The dude got 2 years, like $100 million. $88 million, I think, was guaranteed. And it goes from being, okay, a bargain investment to where they're actually paying Daniel Jones, a guy who one of the biggest knocks on him has been that he can't stay healthy. And now all of a sudden Indianapolis goes from, okay, we can spend some money on the rest of our roster to where you're tied up in a quarterback who has limitations to begin with. Some thought he probably maybe would have fallen off for Indianapolis no matter what last year. I think they still make the playoffs if he doesn't go down. But now you're invested in this. Who were they negotiating against? Like, really, who was Indianapolis negotiating against? And if you're Daniel Jones and you finally find a home and you find a place that is very familiar with what your recovery process is, it's a system that you know, like, where the hell was he going to go? Like, was Minnesota going to pay Daniel Jones what the Colts paid him? I mean, I find that very hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe. Like, was Miami going to say, okay, well, we gave Malik Willis this money. You know what? We really want to give Daniel Jones 2 years, $88 million. We're kind of in a rebuild. We're buying high on Malik Willis, but there's a little bit of a ceiling. You know, we're going to give him 2 years, $88 million. Like, where the Raiders going to say, oh, we got the number one pick with Mendoza. We got all this cap space. You know what? We're going to bring in Daniel Jones. Who was doing this? Like, it's very hard for me to imagine, like, who was doing this. I'm actually flabbergasted by it. And the crazy thing is, I think I probably would have felt this way even if Daniel Jones had never gotten hurt, depending on what happened. Like, to put this in perspective, they paid Daniel Jones, I think, $10 or $11 million more annually than what Sam Darnold is getting right now. Sam Darnold went to Minnesota. He revived himself. And then he went to Seattle. I think his AAV, last I checked, is like $32, $33 million. Daniel Jones is between 44 and 50. Like, who was doing this? It's insane. And I'm saying this pretending that he didn't even get hurt. He tore his Achilles. I know Achilles surgeries are evolving. I know he looked good. I know that they're in quarterback hell. So maybe they just didn't want to risk playing hardball, but my God, what are they doing? And then you combine this with the Alec Pierce thing. Okay, Alec Pierce is all of a sudden making $30 million. All right. Oh, by the way, Michael Pittman Jr., bye-bye. You've been pretty consistent for us. Bye-bye. We're going to send you to Pittsburgh. Like, when you look at annual value, the Colts have $75 million invested in Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce. These were bargains last year. But how is this much different than, like, say, if they had brought in Kyler Murray for a year and just kind of continued to try to figure some stuff out? Maybe they think there's like some sort of continuity. Hell, maybe they want someone to be able to blame and move on from. I don't know. They said Shane Steichen is on the hot seat. I like Shane Steichen. I think Shane Steichen's in quarterback hell. I think he did a good job with Minshew his first year. I think he did a hell of a job to start off with Daniel Jones. I'm a Steichen guy. I think Steichen's done a good job. Sometimes it's hard to find a quarterback. But who else was going to do this? I don't understand. Like, is this getting scrutinized that much? I'm not really as down with like the national talking head stuff, but I just really don't understand how Daniel Jones getting $88 million up to 100 makes sense in any world. It just seems like you're getting a bargain and you just decided, okay, well now I'm going to rip myself off. It's like going through the TJ Maxx or Ross rack and seeing something where, you know, this shirt, this sweater costs $19.99. They got the original price at $120. You found a gem. And then you go to the checkout line, you say, you know what? I want to pay $120. I don't want to pay the $19.99. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I don't get it. Who in their right mind was going to do this? It's strange. The guy tears his Achilles. It doesn't make any sense. Who was even going to come in the same ballpark as this? It's insane. If I were covering the Colts and I were a fan of the Colts, I would just be very confused by this. Like if you sign Daniel Jones to a Malik Willis type deal, maybe a little bit more. Hell, if you even like think that you want to throw him in the Sam Darnold range and give him the 30s, that's fine. The largest 2-year contract in NFL history for a quarterback that literally got waived by the Vikings a couple years ago and then came through. And then also one of the knocks on him is he can't stay healthy. He tears his Achilles. Maybe this is, I'm trying to make sense of this. Maybe this is what happened. And this might actually make sense. And I didn't even think this before I started going on my tangent, but maybe I'm kind of trying to make some sense of this. Maybe this is what it is. And this is kind of what happened. Maybe Daniel Jones didn't want to play with a broken fibula last year because he was going to be a free agent. And this doesn't make it any better from the Colts' perspective. It would just make more sense that they did something so stupid. Like maybe Daniel Jones was like, all right, I know that we're playing really, really good. We're off to a historic start. I got a broken fibula, guys. I kind of need to shut this down. And we see it in basketball a lot where when you have like something that's hurt, but a lot of times it's a calf, hamstring, and you try to go play, like your body or you naturally try to overcompensate. And then next thing you know, your Achilles is kind of flapping like a fish and you're done for the year. It seems to happen. I thought it was crazy that he was playing with a broken fibula. I actually thought the Colts had a chance to beat the Texans heading into their matchup, and it was still a close-ish game. But as soon as they said that he had a broken fibula, I said, all right, he's toast. He's cooked. Maybe the Colts told him, hey, you play with this broken fibula. We got you, dog. We got you, dog. You give it everything you got out there. We're going to help you recover. Now they probably didn't anticipate that he was going to hurt his Achilles, but you go out there and you play. We're going to take care of you, man. We're going to take care of you. We're going to pay you. We're going to pay you elite money no matter what. If you go out there and you risk this for us with the broken fibula, maybe that's what happened. And it kind of gave them an excuse too. If you think about it, kind of gave them an excuse. I think it's a fair excuse. When your quarterback gets hurt, like all bets are off when the quarterback gets hurt. Like it's a reason as much as it is an excuse. We also gave them an excuse. Now ownership can look at this and say, well, if our quarterback hadn't gotten hurt, we would have done this. Maybe they're right too. But he had a broken fibula. You threw him out there. It's not like Daniel Jones wasn't on the injury report and then suddenly he tears his Achilles. Like he literally had a broken fibula. I thought it was crazy he was out there, but maybe there was like some sort of under the table deal. Maybe there's some sort of under the table deal. Hey, you go out there with his broken fibula. We got you covered. It makes more sense than they just decided, you know what? We've got to give Daniel Jones 2 years, $100 million when nobody else in their right mind is even going to come close to that. It makes a lot more sense. Perhaps. I don't know.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Man, I want to talk with Chris Ballard. That is probably high 24/7. ESG Soccer says, We would have been in the Super Bowl with Kyler 100%. I don't know. I'm kind of intrigued to see what Kyler does in Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he would have choked as bad as CJ did. We've seen Kyler come up short. No pun intended. But I think perhaps he wouldn't have choked like that. But I think we honestly just solved the Daniel Jones mystery. I really did. I did not plan on doing that. I think we just talked this out and we solved the Daniel Jones mystery. They promised him that they were going to give him a elite contract if he went out there and played with a broken fibula. We solved it. Does it make them look any better? No. But we solved the crime. There we go. Solved. Boom. We figured that out. That's the wacky stuff going on in the AFC South. Keeping an eye on the Titans, though. Very interesting. So the moves that the Texans have made in free agency, and we got free agent frenzy going down tomorrow. I think there's two obvious guys, and we talked about this on SNL. There's two obvious guys that are now, I think, on the hot seat when it comes to the decisions they've made. We'll get to them in a sec, but a prospect who a lot of people are asking about now, and a guy who we didn't think would be there when the Texans selected at 28 at a position of need, Caleb Banks, who at the combine, he was in the 98th percentile in height at 6'6". He was in the 89th percentile in weight at 327. He had 10.78 hands, which was in the 94th percentile. His arms were 35 inches, which is in the 94th percentile. And his wingspan was 85 3/4, which is the longest at the combine for DT since 1999. So he was an absolute freak show at the combine. And now Dane Brugler, the draft king, the guy who is the top draft guy in the game. Can't wait for the beast to come out. He's the resource that myself and Cody Stoots use, on top of like the Brian Broadduses of the world and stuff like that. But Dane Brugler says that he suffered a broken foot at the combine that will sideline him till June. It happened the night before his on-field testing. He performed a partial workout, not knowing the extent of the injury, and the fracture was surgically repaired on March 9th. So this is a guy who goes from he's not going to be there to maybe he will be there. Question is, do you take a guy who has a foot problem? Now, it'll also be noted that he also had injury problems at Florida in his final season. So the Texans need a DT. The physical traits speak for themselves. They're all time. When do you take him? Like, how much does he fall? You take a first round, a guy with a foot issue, a broken foot in the first round? Feels a little bit risky. Now, the Tennessee Titans, there were questions about Jeffrey Simmons, some off-field stuff, although he was protecting his sister. And he also had a torn ACL. I don't feel like they regret drafting Jeffrey Simmons despite the torn ACL. Now, when you're talking about a foot, you're talking about a guy who's 345 pounds, you start to kind of wonder, okay, is that going to work? Especially in the first round. When you start thinking about if that's gonna make sense. Now, I would say that maybe in the second or third round, you think about it, but I just don't know if you want to draft a guy who has injury issues that's that massive. And I don't know if the Texans at this point, even though they have a good roster, are in the point where they basically want to quote redshirt guys. I don't know that they're at that point. So embrace debate, whether or not you you feel like they should or not. I know there was a player back in the day at the University of Texas. I think he ended up going in the second round, 61st overall. He had some foot issues. He was a big dude too. Sean Rogers. And he ended up being a 3-time Pro Bowler, second team All-Pro in 2004 with the Lions. He ended up playing 12 years in the NFL, and his foot ended up getting right. If you can duplicate that, then more power to you. I just don't know if the Texans are in that spot. Now, maybe you trade out of the first round, you have extra pick. Don't know. But that's going to be something to keep an eye on. It was not going to be there. Now there's talk that maybe the Texans would have an opportunity to bring him in. Never know. Two guys that are perhaps headed on the way out for the Texans. And I put them in red because I think the moves that have been made, they were already on notice. I think you really got to keep an extra close eye on them. Cade Stover and Blake Fisher. And I also put Brevin Jordan. I don't know whether he's going to be ready to go or not, but you brought in a tight end in Moreau. Cade Stover got to be better. And Blake Fisher, I think anyone who actually saw Blake Fisher in camp last year, you could see why the Texans did not want Blake Fisher as a part of their plans outside of reporting eligible every once in a while. And I think that has a lot to do with the Braden Smith bringing him in. You needed another right tackle with Trent Brown, because anyone who actually saw and watched what the Texans decided to do with Blake Fisher, it was obvious that he can't play. It's obvious. So, yeah, the Banks thing is interesting. We'll keep an eye on it. How bad is the broken foot? And obviously he didn't think it was bad enough, so he went and did drills. So you never know. I'm not an expert, but I feel like there's more pressure on tires when they're hauling around a fucking Hummer rather than like a Honda Civic. I mean, when feet are in charge of moving around a guy that massive, you got to take a close look at him. Like, it seems like the larger the human being, the more concerning that foot problems often become. So that'll be something they'll have to figure out. I feel like the Texans have a decent amount of confidence in their medical squad. They do definitely need a DT, but it's something maybe you get some sort of value. Maybe the extra picks make them willing to do that. I would think it would have to fall to the second round. I don't think they would do that in the first, but you never know. But if it does happen, as we go back to how we started this, it's going to be DeMeco's decision, because it's DeMeco's defense. And the tie always goes to the defense. If DeMeco wants to go defense, Nick is going to let him do it. Now, if they go offense, we know who's in charge. Nick Caserio is in charge if it's offense. We've already solved that crime. Solved a lot of mysteries today. Join us at Spanky's tomorrow once again. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time. And very much appreciate y'all for rolling through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. It feels like free agency's kind of died down. I know the Alpha did mention Wyatt Teller, which would be an interesting name to throw in the mix. We don't know if they're done or not. It's a quiet time. They like to bargain shop when it comes to free agents, and maybe that happens. So who knows? Nick Caserio in charge of the offense, yes. But when it comes to the offensive line, you are right, Brandon.
Pop, lock, and drop it. Pop, lock, and drop it.
King Cole has a lot of say. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Offseason is upon us. Fun times. Shout out to Zach and Ace Outdoor for sponsoring the video. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. What a fun time to be alive. Chris Ballard. I got half on it.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the street.
Ways, if is up, then it's still we number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.